Hi, this is G. Ramirez, and welcome to the second of my courses for Sub-Bass Online. This time, we're going to be focusing on the somewhat dark art of mixing and mastering electronica. I'm going to be showing you the techniques I use for mixing a track from start to finish, and that will include the final mastering stage. So in this section, we're going to be looking at preparing for your mix, and that includes creating stems from the project, includes making a template which we can use for future mixes, organizing and categorizing your stems, and then listening to your monitor mix where we will pay particular attention and listen for what we think needs to be done to the mix and how we can improve it. So let's get started. In this video, I'm going to show you how to create stems from your project. Why stems, you ask? Well, there's a few reasons, but mainly it's because if I was to send my project to be mixed by a mix engineer, I would do it this way. I would actually bounce down each individual audio file and with the plugins on, and maybe even the effects sends, etc. So when you load all those individual audio files into a new project, it will sound exactly the way that I've got it. And the reason for that is quite simply because maybe the mix engineer doesn't use Logic. They may use Pro Tools, so they can only work with audio files. They may use a version of Logic that you're not using. They might not have the extensive amount of plugins that you've got. I, for one, have been collecting plugins for years, so I know there are a few esoteric ones in there which people don't have. So it's mainly for compatibility and to know that you can send those files over and they can line them up starting from bar 1, press play, and the track will sound just as you had it. That's the idea. Now, I could mix this from the project. You can see the project on the screen here, which is in Logic 9, and I'll explain that in a little while. I could mix from the project, and I have actually mixed this track as I've been going along from the project. But I've got to a point now, if I open the mixers page, you can see the extensive amount of plugins that I've actually used on each individual track and instrument. I've got to a point where I'm really pushing the processor. Look at that. You know, there's 40 tracks each with loads of plugins on there. There's nothing much I can do. Not only that, by bouncing down the stems, each audio file and instrument separately, it gives me like a fresh perspective on the track as well. I've been looking at it like this since I've been working on it. For me to be able to sort of use my brain in a different way and kind of look at it from a mix perspective rather than a production perspective, that helps with the left brain, right brain mentality of separating, creative processes, basically. Mixing, as you know, is a real crucial part of the track. And if the mix falls down, then the track falls down. It doesn't matter how well produced it is, how much time you spent on it, who features on it, etc., etc. If the mix isn't right, then you're screwed. So I like to kind of look at the mix from a completely different perspective, and that's to get away from this environment here you can see on the screen, which is the sort of production environment, and take it to a mix environment. So how do we create stems? I'm not going to actually sit and do each stem because we would frankly be here for hours, but I will show you how to do it. You can see I'm using Logic 9, okay? Now, this is probably the first and last time that you're going to see Logic 9 in this course. And the reason being is that this it's an old project that I've been working on. It's been work in progress for some time now. And it was done in Logic 9. Logic 10 came out after I started work on this. And unfortunately, some of the plugins still haven't been ported over to 64-bit, so I'm having to use Logic 9 specifically for this. Once I've bounced the stems down, or each individual audio file down, I will then import into Logic 10. So bear with me. I know this course is supposed to be about Logic 10, and we're working in Logic 9. Okay. So I just want to show you how I'm going to do it and give you some tips about bouncing down stems. because it is quite an in-depth subject. Recently, I did a mix for somebody and I said, just bounce down the stems, and they sent it to me and it was completely wrong. I had to get him to redo it. So it'd be good if I explain how to do it. Firstly, let's set our cycle point. Now we're going to set from bar 1 and we're going to actually go all the way. If I zoom in here, we can see at the end of the track. Let's leave a good let's leave a good sort of couple of bars after the end of the track there, just to catch any reverb tails or delays or anything. If I tell you what, let's leave 3 bars, okay, or maybe even 4. Okay, let's do that. Let's leave a good length of time at the end to catch all of that. Okay, let's start from the top. First thing we need to do is we need to go to the output. If I open the mixer here, look at the output. I've actually disabled most of the plugins from there now. So let's take off everything from the output. Okay, so the output's clean. Close that down. I'm going to listen to each individual track in solo. I'm going to solo each track. I'm going to listen to what we've got. Okay, so that sounds like quite a deep 808 style kick. You can see that on that kick, I have some plugins already inserted. I'm using the UAD Pultec EQ, which is a rather nice EQ for those who use the UAD platform. There are different emulations of the Pultec EQ, and I would highly recommend it, especially for things like kick drums and bass. Just by actually inserting that plugin onto your track, it gives it some warmth. I don't know, it adds some kind of sparkle and magic to it that I can't even, that's even before you turn any of the knobs. So that's really nice. I'm also using the channel EQ there. I generally use channel EQ for automating the low cut through parts of the track. So that's what's on there so far. It's actually bus, you can see there, bus 15. It's called Kicks there, and we have another Pultec. So let's just leave it as it is. I think the reason why it's bust is because you can see that there are 1, 2, 3. There are 3 kicks together. So let's start with bouncing this one down. Okay, we'll start with that. Next track, again, is another kick. I'll just solo that so you can have a quick listen. As I say, I'm not going to actually do the bouncing here. This is what I'll do offline, so to speak. That's a very light, clicky type of high kick. Okay, so we can bounce that down. Now, before I go any further, when I say bounce down, there are different ways you can bounce in Logic. One of the ways is to bounce in place, and that's simply, if I open bounce in place, bounce regions in place. Now, you could do it that way. The way we're going to do it, because I want to start from bar 1, I want to bounce all the way to the end there. And also I want to include any kind of effects, any bus routing, any side chaining. I'm just going to use the output bounce, and you'll find that in File. This is Logic 9 anyway, bounce. Okay. I have a key command there. Okay, so that's how we're going to do it. Now, when I open this bounce page up here, you can see the different options we have. So this is how we're going to set it up. I've already got a folder called stems. I have actually already bounced the stems down, but I'm just showing you how I did it. So I've created a folder called stems. In my track folder there, in my project folder, sorry. Okay, I want to do it offline because that's a lot quicker. I want it to be PCM only, and I'm going to bounce it at 24-bit and 44.1. That's the way that I bounce. And then I simply press bounce. Oh, of course, name your track first. You can see there, I've already got one called 808 Subkick, which is the one I'm looking at. So name your track and press bounce. That will then bounce that whole track there from bar 1 all the way up to bar 137. That's how you do it. Okay. Next one. Solo the track. Let's have a listen to it. Okay. That's a light kick. Sounds great. Lots of processing already there. Okay, let's bounce that one. Same thing from bar 1 to bar 137. 80s kick. Let me have a listen to that. Let's solo it. Yeah, that's sort of a body kind of kick. Okay, let me bounce that. Again, that's all that has on it is the channel EQ with a low cut roll off all the way up to 205 Hertz. So we can bounce that down. Okay, remember it's all going through this UAD Pultec EQ there on bus 15. Next one, clap. Let me solo that. Interesting sound. Hence the name Suck Clap. Sounds like somebody sucking a clap. Okay, so you can see there, let me have a look at what I've got on it. It's got an LFO tool, and now I use the LFO tool, and that's what gives it that suck sound. I'm using that as a hard side chain. Also, you've got the sample delay. This is creating the Haas effect. Let me open the LFO tool again for you. Sorry, it's on the other monitor, which you can't see. There's the LFO tool, and that's how I've created it. I'm actually using the sample delay there to delay the left channel slightly from the right, which gives it the very wide stereo effect. If you can hear that. Let me play it. There you go. Now, I've got it going through an EQ there. Sounds great. Let's just bounce it all as it is. Okay. Again, press bounce. All set up all the way from bar 1 to bar 137. Okay. Unsolo that. Next one. Solo the track. Let's have a listen to this one. Okay. Sounds great. Let's bounce it. Next one. What's this? Now, the reason why I'm showing you each individual track is because that's how we want to do it. We want to listen to each individual track in isolation to see what effects we've got on there. We may be using bus effects. We may be using send reverbs. And I want to be able to have a listen to each track and decide whether or not I need that reverb on each thing, or if I can get away without using it, or how to print it, basically. So, great. Loving that. Sounds great. Drums here. Let me have a listen to these. Great. Bounce that. Same process. Next one. What's this? Filter drums. Let me have a listen to this. Okay. It's got quite a lot of reverb. Sort of sits it in the background. That's giving it the sound there. Yeah, you can hear. We need that. Let's bounce it with those reverbs on. Obviously, that's been used. The reverbs have been used to sit that loop in the background for the intro section. So let's bounce that with that on, with all the effects on. Big clap. Let me have a listen to that in isolation. Okay, yep, we can bounce that as it is. Rev clap. I think that's pretty good to go as well. Okay, big clap hit. Let's try that one. Just make sure that you've only got that one soloed. Logic has an annoying habit of, if you press solo, it leaves the other track soloed as well as this one. So I'm sure there is a way of... Okay, yeah, let's bounce that. It doesn't have anything on it. Hats. Let's have a listen to the hats, see what we've got. Great. That's got a little bit of ambience on there, which is coming from this Ocean Way Studios on the UAD, which is really nice. It's very subtle. So let's bounce it with that on. It saves having to find something to replace it because it's very specific, that sound. Okay, bounce that. Again, same thing, all the way from beginning to end. This hat here. Yep, tambourine. Same thing. It's got the Ocean Way Studios. Sorry about that. The Ocean Way Studios ambience plugin on there. Ride. Let's have a look at the ride. Yep. Excellent. That's got some nice plugins on there. We're using the UAD stuff again, the Fatso, taking some of that high zing off the sound. So yeah, let's bounce that. Crash. Fine. We'll bounce that as it is. Now we're on to bass. Let me have a listen to the bass and see what's going on there. Sounds great. Let's just bounce it. Nothing special going on there apart from the fact I'm using the UAD again. You can see there's an extensive use of UAD, but it's specifically an emulation of the UAD Universal Audio 1176 plugin there. Hardware compressor unit, sorry. So that's giving it sound. LFO tool again for a little bit of sidechain, which I like. Let's bounce it. Okay, bounce as it is. Okay, now we're on to this one. This is an interesting sound because it actually features a lot of reverb on this. Now, I need to make a decision whether or not I'm going to bounce it with the reverb on or I'm going to put the reverb on later. But let's have a listen, because if the reverb gives it a specific character and it's, you know, adding to the sound, then we need to add it. We need to leave it because we can't expect the mix engineer to go, okay, that's a side-chained reverb. So let's print it with it on. Let's have a listen. Yeah. Yeah. Very specific sound. We need to print it with it on. So let's do that. Let's just knock down the output level there because it's clipping into the thing, into the red. So let's print that. Okay, we've got that. Let me listen to this Gladiator. That needs reverb as well. That's obviously giving it the sound. It was obviously created in that way for a reason, so let's bounce it down. Also, I want the mix engineer to be able to just drop the audio files in and it sound pretty much the same as what I had it. So, okay, that's great. House organ. I have a feeling this has got reverb on as well, so... Let me look at the compression there. Yeah, that's got reverb. Let's bounce it. Let's bounce it all with reverb. I can always come back to this project if I want to get rid of the reverb on those. Simple as that. But let's bounce it for now with reverb on. Okay. This one. Let's have a listen. This is a big fat electro sound from what I remember. Again, very specific sound, highly side-chained. Using the Pultec again, you can see I like that. It's got distortion. So let's bounce it, okay? Let me have a listen to this one. Yeah, that's just not any old plain reverb. So let's print it with the reverb on. Same again. Print it with the reverb on. Let me listen to this pad. I think this is pretty much bounced without any effects already. Great. Bounce that out as it is. Now the Prophet pad. Let me listen to this section. Okay, heavily side-chained. That reverb, the Valhalla Ubermod, is giving the chorus. Channel EQ is scooping out quite a lot of the bottom end there. So yeah, let's bounce that. Chords 2. This is a copy of the same chord pattern, but with a different sound. So let's have a look. A bit more of a thickener sound. Yep. Again, let's bounce it as it is. Piano. Yep, awesome. Bounce it. Okay. And there's one last sound here, which is a string. Okay, that's great. Bounce that. And then check out this guitar on its own. Lots of effects on there, but I do believe that we're going to have to bounce it because it gives the character of the sound, and that's how it fits in. So let's bounce that as it is. Let me just turn this mix on the crystallizer down on the Sound Toys crystallizer, because it seems to be that the echo is louder than the actual dry signal itself. Perfect. Bounce it. Same again, even though the track only, the guitar only comes in for the last 16 bars from bar 133, we're still going to bounce it from bar 1, sorry. Okay, now we're on to the vocals. Now, I will bounce these down, but later on in the tutorial, I'm going to be looking at some vocal. We're going to be specifically getting really into the details of vocal mixing, and that includes a little bit of vocal production. Something that I kind of looked at a little bit on the first course I did, but we're going to go into a lot more detail. So let me just solo her voice there. You can see there's a filter. Bust there. Lots of effects. Very specific. Bounce that down. Okay. That's Ellie. Now Jimmy, let me listen to him.
Daylight, from daylight to midnight, from midnight to daylight, from daylight to midnight.
Now, he's got reverb on. I'm going to bounce it with reverb just so when I do drag all the audio files into the new project, it all sounds the same. But it may be that I have to come back to this project and bounce it without reverb, and then that will give me more choice a little later. Okay, so let's bounce that. Okay, let's start with this one. Let me have a listen to what this is like. I think this is a very reverbed vocal.
Daylight to midnight, from midnight to daylight.
Yep, bounce it with the vocal, with the reverb on. Same for Jimmy underneath there. I think that's, again, that's the intro, reverbed.
Daylight to midnight, from mid.
Yeah, it's all part of the sound. Okay, now underneath here we have a few effects. Let's bounce those, and we're good to go. What we can see here, all of these regions colored in this baby blue color, these are actually bus. This is bus automation and not audio tracks or instrument tracks specifically. So we don't need to bounce those. Okay, so why don't you go away, bounce down some of your audio files into your stems folder in the way that I've just shown you how to do it. And we'll come to the next video.